Good day, everyone, and I want to welcome you to our Momentum 25 presentation here today. And the theme of this is accelerating excellence. And we'll be covering today a number of areas, but top level, we'll be talking about some of the trends in the industry, how that's influencing our roadmap, and then what we're actually delivering on our roadmaps. And the reason we talk about accelerating excellence is that a lot of what we've put in motion in these last couple of years you're now beginning to see the results of as expressed in the roadmap, and we're trying to accelerate now that foundation that we started. So moving on here, today the presenters will be myself, Karl Triebes. I'm the Chief Product Officer here at Ivanti. I've joined back in January. I'm very excited to be here and speak to you today. We'll also have Daren Goeson up speaking. He's our Senior Vice President of Product Management. He covers our ITSM, our UEM, and our MDM portions of our portfolios, as well as our secure endpoint solutions. And then Michael Riemer, he's also our Senior VP of Network Security. He'll be speaking to our network security products. All right, moving along. First of all, again, I want to thank you all for your support to all our customers and to our partners. And also, I'd like to just express a special note of gratitude to our customer advocates, community leaders, and our community MVPs for helping drive success. Thank you again. And so happy you can be here today for us. All right. So again, on the agenda, I already mentioned it earlier, but first of all, we'll start with the market drivers, and then we'll talk about our neurons platform and our strategy around that. And then we're going to get into our solutions focus and our key themes. So what we've delivered in our first half of the year, and then looking forward to what we're going to be delivering next year or later half of this year, and then as we go into next year. All right. As you know, there's been some challenges this last year, especially when you look at the global economy. And that's created a lot of uncertainty. And I know when you look at other businesses, there's certainly a lot of focus on, belt tightening and really focusing on kind of what the key things are needed to support that business and get through this period of uncertainty. And certainly we're part of that as well. We also recognize, especially when it comes to security, there's been global shortages in talent. In fact, the big challenge, it goes back to the first point with the global economy, is that organizations have difficulty affording, to have these very experienced security teams. And what they're looking to is vendors such as ourselves to help them manage their security posture. And we'll talk together more about that later. But together, I think we can rise to these challenges. If we look at things like this belt tightening, again, has caused us to focus on what the true priorities, and then really focus on how technology can be leveraged to innovate and do more with less. Okay. The other aspect of this too with security is let's focus more on risk and really what are what are the key things you need to consider when managing these risks and security for your organization. So Avanti takes a very holistic view of how we approach security. Avanti adheres to its secure application development standard, which mandates compliance with the OWASP application security verification standards. Avanti performs rigorous code review and code analysis. This includes using industry leading tooling to validate the security of our solutions and ensure Avanti developers adhere to secure coding practices. We also conduct continuous threat modeling, vulnerability assessment, and have implemented security measures to improve our solutions' resilience against current and emerging threats. Avanti's security teams, our InfoSec team, if you will, is comprised of highly skilled security specialists to support Avanti's overall security, and a dedicated product security team focused on the security of our solutions. The size of this team has increased by over 8x over the past few years, along with meaningful elevation in the threat expertise within that team. Now, in addition to all this, Ivanti has implemented a robust training program to empower Ivanti developers to build secure software from the start of the development lifecycle and to avoid common security mistakes. We're taking that very holistic approach. So we use a tool called or an outfit called Secure Code Warrior that helps provide some of that training and assistance. And so, for example, they provide interactive training, coding challenges, and real world examples so the developers can proactively identify and fix vulnerabilities in their code. And this has a meaningful outcome. They actually rank. So Secure Code Warrior actually ranks us among other companies as part of this. We have an overall score based upon the aggregate score of where our developers are within that training regime. And what we landed, I think, around 580, which puts us well above our peers. We're well above average on that. So we're on the right track and we're improving that every month. So again, we take our security very seriously, not only for the security we provide to our customers, but how we secure our products and platforms. All right. So where are we going in 2025 and kind of what's driving us? So let's just talk about the market trends that are impacting IT and security. I'm sure these are going to look familiar to most of you, but as we all know, there's an evolving threat landscape. Um, the use of AI is allowing bad actors to have access to very sophisticated tools. Everything from creating much more sophisticated and nefarious phishing attacks to doing more brute force types of attacks, but against whether your core systems or your endpoints. But AI is assisting them, and of course, we need to stay in front of those attackers, and so we'll talk more about how we're doing that. Now, IT and security alignment. Now, this is a critical thing that's happening because traditionally there's been a pretty big gap between these two organizations. You've had IT was kind of focused on the business logic, actually making the business run, whereas security teams are very focused on stopping and preventing attacks or data breaches or things like that. Well, the problem, these two worlds have different goals and different workflows. And so it's very hard for them to talk. And that's, in terms of having meaningful goals or shared goals and being able to understand those. And that's part of what we'll talk about more about what we're doing with exposure management. But kind of the key things are, being able to get those workflows and automate those workflows, right? Because, or data visibility. The other aspect of this too is, you're getting, the attacks with AI. Well, you need to help use AI to help defend against some of those attacks and brings more efficiencies to the organization. And then finally, also ensuring your use of AI is inherently secure because what you don't want, for example, is your data to go off into a public model and trying to get that data back out of that public model is again like trying to get the flour out of the bread after it's been baked. The other aspect of this too is endpoints. That threat landscape is evolving and growing, and it's generally centered around the growth of these endpoint solutions, whether they be mobile devices, your on-premise devices, IoT devices, those types of things. But that those each create opportunities for hackers to exploit vulnerabilities within those devices. And so having a good view or understanding that threat landscape and how those attacks are evolving and how to best protect against those. Again, that's one of the core tenets around exposure management. So if you can see here, I mean, AI threats are, loom large for security professionals. So, which of these threats will become most dangerous due to generative AI? Well, frankly, all of them. Phishing, for example, that's one of the key ones because that involves the social engineering. Software vulnerabilities, yes, they're going to be out there. AI helps attackers take advantage of those more rapidly. Again, going back to the needs of better ways to, protect and innovate and autonomously protect those endpoints. Then there's ransomware and all these other attacks. But interestingly, about a third of organizations don't even have a documented strategy to address generative AI risks. So that's the things like leaking data inadvertently into models or how users are using these. For example, are your coders using safe practices? They're not letting source code get up into these AI models. Again, so any case, there's threats from everything, including the thing that's going to help us prevent these threats, AI. All right. So a lot of our focus in the last year has been, or I should say the last few years, has been around creating a consolidated platform for all of our solutions. We have four pillars, our enterprise service management, our endpoint management and security products, our exposure management, our endpoint security products, and then our network security. And these are our solutions. And we've been integrating these into a common platform so that you can have a common login experience, user federation. We're trying to simplify, the navigation between these applications with our app switcher. We have role-based access controls, things like that. So it makes it easier for now users to leverage this and then, take advantage of these various applications. What we're working on now is fully integrating the whole data in the back end so that now you can have your stats and statistics and workflows that transcend these individual pillars, and you can reap the value of multiple solutions and in this integrated platform. Here are the four pillars that I mentioned earlier. And really what these things focus on is one, being able to improve IT efficiency, right? Reduce costs and allow your IT workforce to focus on the tasks that matter most and that will have the most leverage within the business. Enterprise service management is critical to that. That's how you make it efficient for both your users and your analysts to provide those vital IT applications and fault resolution or issue resolution as they may come up. Exposure management, as I mentioned earlier, is the next generation of a security that allows your that breaks down the silo between your IT organization and your security organization. And again, that goes towards the notion of reducing operational costs while improving your security at the same time. And that's critical for that. And how it does that, again, like I mentioned, is that it builds up a risk score. That risk score is based on both internal sources, so looking at your kind of your internal threats and internal infrastructure, as well as your endpoints, as well as external sources that you leverage, like third-party applications. And based on that, it presents a risk score. And then it gives you essentially, based on that risk score, then you're able to take actions based upon that. So, for example, you get a CVE. A CVE comes in, it has a score of, say, a nine, a CVSS score of nine. And you look at that, say, oh, I have to go do something about it. Well, exposure management can analyze that and say, no, your real risk of that's a five because, yes, it may have a high CVSS, but the opportunity for it to be exploited is quite low. So it allows you to really focus on the things that matter most and then have your vital IT and security resources moving the levers that have the biggest impact on your overall security posture. Now, part of that is also endpoint management and security because it's not enough to show the risk, but you need to be able to remediate that, and ideally in an automated fashion. And that's what the endpoint management brings to the table: is that it does things like discovery, it does things like automated, basically patching of your endpoints and getting them up to stuff so that are up to the right release level, so that you can ensure that you have the highest integrity and you're doing the best practices of maintaining the latest versions and keeping and reducing that security threat surface. And then finally we have our network security products. Network security is about secure access and securing your network assets as well. And again, that's critical because it's what you need to have: a secure connection into your cloud or into your other assets within your IT infrastructure to ensure that integrity of that connection and who is accessing that. Okay. Now, this is something I'd like to thank all our partners and customers. Last year we'd set a goal to migrate over 1,000 customers to our Avanti's Neurons platform, and we overachieved that by quite a bit. We did over 1,600 of these migrations, and we're delighted with that because the thing about our being on our cloud platform is that it allows us to provide innovations at a much higher pace than we can in your traditional on-premise environments. We're able to update our back end, if you will, our system, our SaaS products at a much higher cadence than we're able to do that for customers who are running these on premise. We update our platform weekly or biweekly, depending. And what it allows us, again, if there's a vulnerability, a threat, we can patch it and get it out of the way for you. You don't have to worry about it. So we could do things on the behalf that of yourselves that you would now don't have to worry about. That's one of the key things. Like I mentioned, it also allows us to put features in much faster than we can in other cases. So we're encouraging everyone to get over to the platform because again, we can provide better security, better performance, and a much better overall customer experience. So let's talk about kind of where we're focused on the roadmap. Daren's going to be jumping in and going through a much greater detail. I'm going to kind of talk about the focus and the kind of the key areas that we're talking about. So on enterprise service management, and this really kind of there's two pieces, kind of two key pieces to think about here. There's the IT service management, and then that's managing all of your assets. And then of course there's a whole bunch of things that go with this. We actually have a very good AI foundation that we've already built into the platform. It does things like basically summarizes your tickets. It also can do things like take those and look at parent tickets and try to send, draw a circle around where the key issues are so you can focus on kind of the source of a number of issues versus just chasing incidents. And then we also have dynamic dashboard views based on that. So those are all in the product. I encourage you to take a look at that. But when I think about the themes around enterprise service management, it really is simplifying that onboarding and that user experience. AI is going to play a role in that. We're working on adding agentic AI to have more prompt driven interfaces instead of having to go through kind of explicit UIs. And this will provide a much easier way for your analysts or your end users to access information or provide tickets over time. So there's a number of things we're doing there that I think will be very interesting. On our endpoint management security, as I mentioned, we do a number of things here. So we do discovery or inventory management. We can do things like mobile device management. We call it modern device management because as part of what we're doing with our platform is we're consolidating both your mobile endpoints and your traditional endpoints to be managed kind of holistically versus kind of in two separate worlds. So on top of this, there's a lot of things that we can provide around like digital experience management. As I mentioned earlier, patch management, which I think is absolutely critical. That's tied to our exposure management solution, and that allows you to autonomously update as you find vulnerabilities versus manually. And that means a lot because we have customers that could have tens, 50, hundreds of thousands of endpoints that they're trying to manage. And the only really way to do that is, in a system that can scale for those enterprise requirements, which is what the Avanti platform does. Now, I already talked a lot about exposure management. There's a number of components that support that. So we have our risk-based vulnerability management solution, which works under the hood. Discoveries under there. Patch management, like I mentioned, integrates to this. Our EASM, or external attack surface management, is a part of that. That's what provides the external discovery. And then there's a number of things here like enterprise workflow management, and this secure ops management. So your secure DevOps can fit through this. And then finally, last but not least, is our network security. We have the application delivery control, network access control, secure access management, and we have a VPN service that sits on that, as well as our zero trust access. So it's all again about going back to that. How can I securely attach to my applications into my clouds, and ensure high integrity of those connections, and what that does. And I've already talked about the platform, but again, we're doing a lot to extend those platform capabilities that you'll hear more about. Now, I've already talked a lot about these themes here, and I'm just going to reiterate on these. Again, enterprise service management. Let's simplify that user experience, make it easier to onboard, make it easier to put your workflows in. AI is going to have be a critical component of all that. On the endpoint management security is just to make sure we're keeping up to date. It's one of the key things. Hey, new OSs are coming out, new browsers are coming out, versions of the browsers are coming out. We're going to keep up to date on that. We're going to enhance the automation capabilities, just make it easier for enterprises to schedule, manage, and have these integrated within these other pillars here, such as enterprise service management and exposure management. So those are another key themes. Exposure management, again, it's about the risk. How do I manage these risks? What actions can I take to ensure the integrity of the solutions that I'm putting in place and reduce that overall attack surface, even though my applications may be rising, the threats are rising, and my attack surface, is rising. My exposure to that is. And then finally, on network security, um, we've been really focused on modernizing and hardening the platform. So there's a new OS, modern OS for it's Oracle Linux 9.0. That'll be coming here very shortly. Our 22.x path, we've been hardening it. We actually put a new web browser, commercially available off-the-shelf web browser that's up to date. It's actually it's Nginx, which is F5 provides that, and so it's nice. So we're trying to get rid of or not leverage as much custom code and go with more industry standard, and upgrade that platform. So in any case, those are the major themes. These are the areas that we're focused on. And now I'm going to turn it over to Daren to get into the details. Take it away, Daren.
Well, thanks, Karl. It was great to hear about the vision and strategy of the Neurons platform and our areas of focus, and really around how our platform is helping us deliver our solutions for our customers. And the main objective there is to really drive the value that our customers have with Ivanti and partnering with Ivanti going forward. So what I'll do is I'll double click in some of those areas. I'm going to go through each of the solutions, the enterprise management solutions, the unified endpoint management, as well as the endpoint security or exposure management solutions. I'm going to focus on three areas. One is let's talk a little bit around market conditions or challenges that customers are having. That's really helping us inform our strategy with these. Two is we'll go over along with the focus that you talked about, what we delivered in H1 really to align to that focus and help address those challenges that we see in the market. And then third is let's take a look ahead at some of the innovation that we're planning for H2. And of course, with such broad portfolios, we won't go over the entire roadmap, but we'll pull out some key pieces that we're looking to deliver going forward. So let's get started. Now, if we think of enterprise service management or service management in general, it really has been going through significant transformation in enterprise environments. And that's really because what was once focused on just help desk or providing a service experience for employees is really around the service management driving innovation and growth within an organization. More and more of our customers are telling us that they're focused on the business outcomes and focused on enabling the business outcomes within their organization. Now, reducing costs is certainly one way in which you can help an organization achieve its business outcomes, but it's much, much more than that across the enterprise. It's really around increasing productivity that your employees have. This increase in productivity is really centered around the employee improving their overall experience with the technology that they use to get work done, and you see the benefits in the overall customer experience. Of course, security organizations are highly leveraging service management solutions as well to ensure that we have a closed loop process to securing and reducing cyber risk within the organization, which of course lends itself to the overall business outcomes that you have within your company. At the end of the day, service management organizations are looking for their vendors or their partners within enterprise service management to deliver a solution for both for IT security and non-IT service organizations across the lines of business to accelerate digital transformation and adoption of that technology within their environment. So if we think of it around that backdrop, let's look at some of the release capability or the capabilities that we released here in the first half of 2025. I'll start with on the right on lines of business and application workflows that we have within the solutions. Many organizations are taking on green initiatives because it's good for their business and it helps drive cost savings. Well, we've added in carbon footprint tracking, which allows you to track the carbon footprint of certain hardware devices within your organization. So you can really understand the impact to the to carbon footprint for those devices, but really it helps you understand and extend the life of devices, which is one of the key drivers that our customers have. So that's now been added into our ITSM or ESM solutions. User experience is so important, both for the employees in terms of their experience when they're needing to be able to have issues resolved within their organization. So we know that experiences have shifted to a much more modern prompt-based experience, as well as for analysts when they have tickets or incidents or changes that are coming in to be able to effectively manage them. So we've done a ton of focus around our UI and user experience, both on the end user and the analyst perspective. And I'll go over some of those in more detail for the end user. And then leveraging AI to help drive efficiency in an organization. And enterprise service management is really the perfect opportunity to take all of that unstructured data and help your analyst, in this case, be able to drive better decision making and ultimately resolve issues quicker by using AI to go through these large data sets that humans can't. So let's take a closer look at that one. We've added in AI incident correlation. The whole objective here, let's reduce the time that services are down, let's reduce the risk to the organization and increase employee and analyst productivity. What this does is as tickets come in, it will analyze them leveraging AI to understand if this is related to some broader issue. So organizations might get hundreds of tickets that come in with various different descriptions on them, but oftentimes there's an underlying issue. So user may say, "Hey, my computer's not working correct," or "I can't access this application," or "My password isn't working," and those could all be an underlying issue of a service not being available. So this AI incident correlation allows you to essentially not ignore, but really focus on the main issue while not having to resolve all 100 issues at once. If you resolve one core issue, then you get to resolve all those issues at a single time. So this allows you to really focus on the core issue and get that service up and running and reduce the time that it takes to resolve the issue for the end user and effectively get them back to work quicker. Now, a modern employee and customer experience for self-service is incredibly important. This helps users feel engaged with your solutions with IT. It drives a very, very high level of engagement with the IT organization. It increases health help rates. It lowers the service desk costs. And this is why it's such an important aspect to have an experience for your employees that's personalized and effective. And we focused a lot of time in this over the past 6 months, the last previous 2 quarters, developing a modern, responsive web UI for consuming of services really across whatever device the end users are using in this omni-channel world. We focused on search, prompt based. It's oftentimes less of an experience is a better experience because you can get directly to the point through search and exactly what you want. We've also focused on better adoption for our customers by being able to leverage out of the box pre-built templates and landing pages across lines of business. We've improved the accessibility of the solutions as well. All of this to drive to a higher level of engagement and a higher level of ticket deflection so that these issues don't actually make it way to the service desk and your employees can get the support that they need. Now, if we look at what's coming up in H2, now let's switch over to unified endpoint management. And if we think of challenges here in unified endpoint management, it's not a new phenomenon, but certainly an ongoing one in which all of our customers, there's a significant growth in the number of devices that need to be managed and growth in the types of devices that need to be managed. So, certainly your data center, your mobile devices, your endpoint devices, you see growth in those. Those are constantly being switched over, but also in other types of devices, IoT devices, other connected devices in your organization. So, more than ever, organizations are requiring a unified endpoint management solution. That is a solution that in which you don't have to swivel chair from one environment to the other, depending on the device type. So, a modern management approach that includes both client management and modern management for all devices within your organization. And number two is all of this digital transformation has been great, but it hasn't had the focus on the employee that's needed. It hasn't been able to look at it and determine what the impact to the employee is. And are they able to leverage that technology to be able to achieve the objectives that they're trying to achieve within the organization? And that's why digital experience is such a key growing component of unified endpoint management, not only enabling and securing the technology that we're providing to our employees, but also ensuring that it's fit for purpose and it's delivering on the expectations that we have of that technology so that we can achieve the productivity and the business outcomes of the organization. And of course, all endpoint management, all devices and assets in the organization are a huge attack surface for an organization, which is why convergence of endpoint security with endpoint management is critical so that you can have both your IT teams and your security teams and the teams that are working to reduce risk within your endpoints all working out of a single pane of glass and a single data set, which is where we get to autonomy, more automation within our endpoint management. And we see this across the board, both in client management as well as in modern management, leveraging automation to understand where there are technology issues, experience issues, or performance issues, or security risks within your endpoint landscape and using automation to set it back to a desired state or to drive a better employee experience. So, autonomous endpoint management, using autonomy to do the things that humans just don't have the time or the understanding of the data to be able to get to is a key aspect for all of our customers. So we think of our release highlights. Number one is Karl mentioned many of the capabilities that we're delivering in our Neurons platform around the experience, driving a single sign-on experience, driving a unified navigation and unified experience across our UEM solutions. So that's been a key aspect for us and will continue to be to do so. Second, if we go all the way to the other side, unified workspace management or user workspace management, excuse me, and application control. We delivered this in the second half application control in our cloud-based solution, and we continued to deliver and iterate on capabilities within application control, as well as user workspace management. All of this, the objective to drive a better user experience for employees out of the gate, whether it be in their physical device or in devices in which are more shared in nature. For our decks and automation, we focused on bot enhancements and really driving bot from a security perspective, integrating into our patch solutions and getting our automation capabilities ready for more patch automation. Of course, we're leveraging our decks and automation in many ways. One of them being around having this as a focus for a modern application deployment experience. We've done a ton of work in our application management as well. Um, One of the areas is around software estate and giving our customers a view of this, all of the software that they have within the organization. So many areas going in with our application management. We recently released an application portal that gives your customers the ability to be able to go in and select applications and do a deployment process from there. Now, one area that I want to highlight on is in our security side, and this is around exposures. And what we've done within our discovery is have the ability to aggregate findings from multiple scanners so that we can give our customers a view of the exposures that they have in the organization. Now, when you couple this with discovery, which gives you complete visibility of all of the assets in the organization because Discovery has done the work through active and passive scanning techniques and connectors to be able to find everything in your environment and give it to you in a single view. Now you can look to see what the scanners within your organization are finding and aggregate them. This now gives you the ability to go and see number one, where there might be gaps within your scanners, where one scanner found something, but the other scanner didn't, but two is where you might have gaps in the understanding of the assets that you have in the organization and those that are being scanned. So if you have done discovery, found assets that maybe aren't managed or maybe were previously unknown, chances are they may not be being picked up from your vulnerability scanners. This will give you a single view here of all of your assets and your scanner information so you can really start to see where you have risk within your organization. This, by the way, is included in our discovery. So if you think of discovery, it gives you the ability to discover assets, users, software, as well as the exposures in your organization. So really building out a complete picture of the assets and inventory within your organization. And building upon this is software inventory. This gives you a complete visibility of software estate within within your organization. This is obviously useful for many reasons. Number one, it tells you all the manufacturers and titles that you have. Oftentimes, this is kept in spreadsheets in multiple places. Lets you look to see where you have end of life software. This is important because this is software that's not going to be supported within your organization. It also gives you the ability to go in and import or enter license and transaction information. So you can start to build a picture around where you have software that may not be used, but although you may have a high license count or license compliance in there. Now we use a definitive software library, a piece of AI technology that we own that actually that normalizes this comes in. As you can imagine, software, the same piece of software can come in this form of many different names and different versions. So we have a normalization engine that gives you a single view of all of the software within your organization. So you can use it for what's being used, where there might be differences in license, and where there's security risk within your software. So this is something that's evolving again as part of our discovery and provides a tremendous amount of value to our customers, all from a single view. In terms of what's coming in H2, on our platforms, we're focusing on, which brings us to endpoint security and exposure management. Um, so as Carl mentioned, the attack surface is significantly broadening, both with devices, with networks, with the use of AI, etc. And really, the situation that many organizations are in is they have they're overwhelmed with what to fix. As the attack surface broadens, the number of vulnerabilities that they need to deal with broadens as well. The amount of information that they have is it can be overwhelming for organizations. So really, organizations are looking to understand where their attack surface is broadening, be able to have a singular view of that, and as well as additional context in where they spend their time. And this is why the conversation has been changing from vulnerability management to exposure management. And exposure management is really around being able to balance your risk tolerance with your cyber risk posture, and being able to put those in line, understanding the entire risk you have, using information to understand and define where your exact risk tolerance is, where you spend your resource, and then using automation and patch and configuration to be able to shore up your environment to match what you have and what your objectives are in your risk posture. So for Avanti, our focus has been on number one, providing visibility to our customers of that attack surface and where their vulnerabilities are, as you saw through the exposure side. Two is the ability to be able to prioritize based off real threat intelligence, not just a CVSS score. And then three, through remediation, through patch management in other ways. And for here, we'll focus on our patch management. Let's look at some of the key aspects in which we delivered. Number one is external attack surface. This is something that was added to our portfolio midpoint of last year. And what this does is gives you an external view of your attack surface. So if you think of your attack surface as a puzzle, this would be all the pieces on the outside edge. It's what a hacker sees when they're looking at your organization. And the vulnerability scanners would pick up the pieces of that puzzle that within the middle. So this external attack surface view is a critical piece to exposure visibility. And recently, in the first half of this year, we added in technology pages, for example, that shows exposures from a technology stack, helps you answer the question of what components are putting the organization at risk so you can work to be able to remediate them. If we go into risk-based vulnerability management, this is understanding priority. Where do you focus on with the resources that you have to be able to achieve the risk posture that you want? We really focused on automation, automated ticket creation when you have new findings, when findings are updated, when you go from a CVS S6 to a risk score of above 9 because something has changed or it's been actively exploited. So we focused on that automation so that humans don't have to do it and errors don't happen as these severity changes, for example, are happening. So we've done integrations into Neurons for ITSM, automated ticket creation for new instances. We've also created new connectors. So we're continually creating new connectors. We've added GitHub Advanced Security so we can assist in your DevOps team or DevSecOps team here to be able to manage security vulnerabilities through the Dell application process. And then on Neurons for Patch Management, we're really excited this. We've added in ring deployment. And what this does is it allows you to enhance the automation for uh, your uh, your patch deployments. It allows you to set individual rings. So you might set test rings, early adopter rings, and production rings, and be able to control the rate in which the patches are deployed across these rings if they hit certain criteria in terms of patches being deployed. And you can do so with automation. So ring deployment really allows you to take a very pragmatic approach to deploying patches within your organization. Now, if we look at what's coming up in H2, um, Now, with that, I'm going to pass it over to Mike to discuss the network security.
Thank you, Daren. Now let's take a look at network security. So Ivanti's focus for network security is on securing access to data and applications. The evolving threat landscape and attack surface, as we all know, has been really a challenge for us in the past 18 months. But we've met that challenge and we've come forward with some great products moving forward for the remainder of the year. Cloud and digital information. We want to make sure that as we're looking at the information that we have from our customers, that we're taking into the capabilities that we have within the cloud. Majority of the NSG products have been on-prem for years, but we're expanding into the cloud, and the features functionalities that we're embracing there will help our customers to be able to deploy our network security solutions much quicker and maintain them and keep them current and modern against that evolving threat landscape. And then enabling visibility and control. One of the things that we hear constantly from our customers is that they can't see what the users are accessing and being able to understand what the users are accessing. And by embracing the cloud-based functionality, we are able to gain visibility into and control over where customers are, where users are going access and gaining access within environments. And then secure access anytime, anywhere, on any device. We want to make sure that even as we get new operating systems and updates from mobile device manufacturers as well as desktop manufacturers, that we're meeting those requirements and we're making sure that we have day one support for those types. So in the first half of the year, we've really focused in on that security aspect from our VPN solution. And we introduced Neurons for Secure Access, which is the cloud-based platform that can manage the life cycle of the gateways and improve the visibility and the security of the user, and provided a much better user experience in the fact that as a SaaS-based platform, we're able to manage all licensing in one location. We're able to see user behavior, and we can provide user-based analytics, as well as being able to do the holistic lifecycle management of the individual gateways, be they either on-prem or virtual gateways. We can manage those. Ivanti Connect Secure, probably our flagship product within the NSG portfolio. We focused in on that. Threat actors did attack it in a very hard way. We had a very negative impact on the solution in Q1 of 2024. With board support and executive leadership approval, we did move forward with a security hardening effort within that solution. And I can tell you that the release that'll be coming out in June of this year is nowhere near the product that was in production in January of 2024. It is a completely different architecture, bolstering new web services, WAF integration, as well as a secure boot functionality, and then also some advanced capabilities that we have done at the coding level in order to secure and harden that solution. And then Ivanti Secure Access Client. We constantly are improving and enhancing the capabilities of that client. One of the main things that we focused on was a year-long effort that culminated about 6 months ago. With a much better upgrade process and more reliable upgrade process. We had one customer that their goal was to have less than a 10% failure rate. And before that effort, we were sitting at about a 30% failure rate. So we weren't meeting our SLA with them. And after this effort, we've actually taken that down to 3%. And we actually now are functioning at less than a 3% failure rate when we do upgrades of that client. So that client now, very, very robust, very solid, and very dependable for our customers, as well as being secure and meeting the security requirements. As we looked at some of the specifics here, when we talk about neurons for secure access, one of those was being able to schedule and stage gateway upgrades. It has long been a request that we've had from our customers that we help modernize the upgrade process to the physical and the virtual gateways, those on-prem type devices. And this was a feature that we added in where we can actually go in and stage an upgrade and schedule it to happen so that it can be done without human intervention. And this is a great feature that we can go even one step further and go into auto download install, as you can see in the screenshot there on the right. An auto download install would allow customers to set their gateways up for a maintenance window. And every time we, as the vendor, upgrade the version of code in Neurons for Secure Access and make a new version of gateway software available, it would automatically download and start that installation in that maintenance window that the customer has determined for that gateway. So this gives you basically a automated way of ensuring that all of the gateways that a customer manages are up to date and on the latest version of code all the time in a consistent basis. And again, being able to do this with different types of gateways and staging different gateways at different times gives the customer great flexibility in order to maintain currency on the state of the gateway software. And then one of the other big ones that we had was being able to take Syslog information, with privacy being a huge issue for many customers, and looking at what they do with privacy information, being able to take and move the information from our cloud-based solution and moving it into a Syslog server local to the customer in their own data center where they can manage it and maintain it is paramount for them. So being able to take that information off, so we added that capability for customers to take information from Neurons for Secure Access and move it directly into a Syslog server locally within their own data center, so that they have that information for historical purposes as well as forensic evaluation if required based upon events. And again, it overall improves productivity and efficiency of the admins and reducing the works that they have to do from a configuration perspective. Now let's take a look at what's coming in the second half of 2025. As a reminder, all information that was covered in today's presentation is confidential, and it must be shared only under NDA. And of course, the information can change due to unforeseen circumstances, and is not a true commit, but it is one we strive to commit, but it could change. On behalf of Karl, Daren, and myself, I'd like to thank you for your time and attention today. If you do have any follow-up questions, please reach out to your local sales team, and they'll be happy to get you an answer. And again, thank you. Have a good day.